Morning to everyone who's joining us. We'll just give it another few seconds, let a few more people in, and then we'll start. We see a few more people joining, so we'll just give it a couple more seconds. Well, good morning, everyone. Very warm welcome to everyone who's joining us today. This is our employment webinar for the Greater Manchester Business Resilience Campaign. My name is Colin Brew. I am Head of Strategic Partnerships at the Greater Manchester Business Growth Hub. And today's webinar session is going to focus on the challenges business face around the theme of employment. Please be aware, we are recording today's session. We're conscious that a number of businesses are unable to be with us today. So we're recording all of our webinar series really to ensure that if people are unable to attend, they can watch back at any time. Fantastic to have so many of you joining us. And today we're going to hear from a panel of business specialists around the theme of employment. But first of all, I just want to set the scene around our resilience campaign, talk a little bit about the support that's on offer, not just from ourselves at the Greater Manchester Business Growth Hub, but the wider business support landscape. So over recent weeks, the Greater Manchester Business Growth Hub has implemented Greater Manchester's Recognised Resilience campaign here for business. And this provides reassurance and targeted support for businesses in need through our webinar series. The campaign has been focused on giving businesses in Greater Manchester the best possible start to 2025 and has been developed to support businesses through their key concerns and specific pain points. Now, today, unfortunately, is our final webinar in the series. However, we will remain available to assist with any concerns or challenges that your business might be facing. The Greater Manchester Business Growth Hub is Greater Manchester's business support organisation. We exist to improve lives in communities across the city region by unlocking the potential in businesses and driving growth in the economy. And we are fortunate to be able to do that through our UK Shared Prosperity funding. We provide a wide range of services, both thematic and sector-specific support. And in the screen in front of you, you can get an indication of the work that we do across sales, funding, people, sustainability, innovation, and early stage and startup support. You can also see our focus on those key sectors of Greater Manchester, and all that support alongside our local place-based teams ensure that we can drive productivity, create and safeguard jobs, and create inclusive growth across the city region. All of our support is fully funded and it comes at no cost to your business. It's also important that we recognise the wider business support landscape, as there's a wealth of support for Greater Manchester businesses. Business Growth Hub works hard to partner and collaborate with other providers of support to ensure that the customer journey is as fluid as possible. And I'd obviously like to take the opportunity now just to thank all of our partner organisations for their contribution to this campaign. Now, as our webinar theme today is employment, I also wanted to take a moment just to draw your attention to an important initiative that Greater Manchester is launching to encourage employers to host T-level placements and unlock their business's potential. The T-level campaign aims to support employers with the information and support they need to make the most of T-level placements. And T levels underpin the Greater Manchester Baccalaureate, strengthening technical education opportunities and creating a genuine alternative to universities, as well as assisting employers to fill the skills gaps that will help boost the Greater Manchester economy. So, what are T levels? Well, in essence, they are 2 year technical education courses for 16 to 19-year-olds that instigate a combination of both classroom and industry placement learning. Placements last for 45 days, spent with the employer over a 2 year period, and as I say, are equivalent to 3 A levels, providing a nationally recognised certificate. They're designed with employers to ensure that they address the skills gaps in Greater Manchester's growing sectors and help future-proof the workforce. So what's the role of employers? Well, ultimately, it is to host a student for a minimum of 315 hours, approximately 45 days, giving them meaningful and relevant work experience. Support the students through their development in a safe and inclusive environment, and promote diversity and inclusion, ensuring that all students have equal opportunities to succeed. There's obviously some huge benefits to bringing T levels into your business. You can gain access to motivated students, help build that pipeline of skilled workers, strengthen that economy, as we talked about, and obviously, as well as that, enhance the reputation of your business as being a socially responsible and forward-thinking employer. The pledge and campaign website are now open for further details. If you'd like to find out more, or if you're ready to make a pledge to support a young person in your business, then just scan the QR code that's on the screen or visit www.gmtlevels.org. Also, my colleague Steph is going to pop into the chat details of a launch webinar scheduled for the 24th of April at 2 o'clock, where Andy Burnham will be telling us more about the initiative. So I'd really encourage you to find out more by scanning the QR code or visiting the website. So let's discuss employment. Now, I'm not an expert in employment, so to assist our discussion today, I have 4 colleagues who are specialists in this field, and we're going to find out a little bit more about them, the work that they do, and their insights into the employment landscape across Greater Manchester. You will have the opportunity as the audience to ask questions. So I really encourage you to get involved, post any questions that you might have within the chat, and we'll ensure that we pose them to our panel. So I'm going to invite our panel to join us now. We're fortunate to have with us Ian MacArthur. Ian is the Director of the Greater Manchester Good Employment Charter. We have Johnny Bohane. Johnny's a Senior Manager of Market Intelligence at Robert Walters Recruitment and Outsourcing. And we have Claire Davis, Organisational Development and Skills Specialist at Made Smarter. We'll also be joined by Terry Duffy. Terry is the Strategic Growth Partnership Lead at the Advisory, Conciliation and Arbitration Service. So welcome to our panel. Thank you for being with us today. I suppose before we start, we need to find out about who you are and what you do. So I'm going to come to you first, Ian. Can you maybe just tell us who you are, who you represent, and the work that you do across Greater Manchester?
Thanks. Thanks, Colin. Good to be here. Hello, everyone. So as Colin says, I'm the Director of the Greater Manchester Good Employment Charter. For those of you who are unaware of the Charter, this was Andy Burnham first term initiative to create a good employment charter. It's a membership and assessment scheme, and as many of the growth company services are, it's free. Well, it's fully funded, let's put it that way. Nothing's free. It is paid for somewhere. And as well as a membership and assessment scheme, it's a community of like-minded employers who support one another to recognise and develop great employment standards. I'll say more later, but the context, I think, is really important given the employment rights bill that's going through Parliament currently, and I'm sure Terry will talk about that when he joins us.
Brilliant.
Thanks, Colin.
That's great. No, thank you. Thanks for joining us, Ian. I'm going to come to you next, Claire.
Good morning, everybody. So I'm the workforce development specialist. I have just moved over to the manufacturing sector, but prior to that, I did work with businesses of all shapes and sizes across Greater Manchester. So the work I do on behalf of the growth company is very much developing the workforce, as it says. So that might look like upskilling, looking at the succession planning, very much in that people space. So in terms of the new employee rights bill, it's definitely been, I think, a topic on everybody's lips when I'm going in and out of businesses at the minute. And I think that upskill piece is really, really important around that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that later.
Brilliant, Claire. Thanks so much for joining us and congratulations on the new job as well. Johnny, what about you?
Yes, hi everyone. So Johnny Bohane here, Market Intelligence Manager at Robert Walters. So I provide advisory services, data sets, and expertise to businesses when it comes to the labour market and recruitment trends. You may well have engaged with Robert Walters when you are placing a role, and I oversee all of those placements and the trends in the market. So looking forward to going through them today.
Brilliant. Great to have you with us, Johnny. And thanks to Robert Walters, not just for your support today, but we partner regularly with yourselves, and it's great to have the relationship that we do. So we're definitely going to pick your brains today, Johnny. Ian, I'm going to come to you first because good employment really does matter to Greater Manchester. And obviously, the Greater Manchester Good Employment Charter has become a flagship initiative for GM. And I know the model that you use is being adopted by many other regions nationally. So you're obviously extremely well placed to talk to us about what good employment is. So what is good employment? Why does it matter so much to Greater Manchester? Why is it an important thing from a business perspective? And should there be things that an employer should be considering when it comes to good employment?
Thanks, Colin. Yeah, I think clearly, the Mayor recognised from the outset that good employment standards not only provide social impacts in terms of employee health and well-being and economic capabilities, but also the productivity gains to be found in all organizations, not just business, in the public, excuse me, and the third sectors as well, through adopting good employment standards. So when we established the need for this, we spent some time thinking about what is good employment and what are the characteristics of good employment. And we came up with 7 characteristics that we work with our employers to achieve a particular standard. And we look at, and the 7 characteristics are pay. We look at pay levels, and we pin ourselves very much to the real living wage. Now, I know everybody will be conscious that the living wage, the national living wage, which is in fact the national minimum wage, has just gone up, and it's gone up to £12.21 an hour just this month. Now, that previously was calculated by the Low Pay Commission on the basis of what the economy can afford. This year, their terms of reference have been tweaked slightly by the government to look at what the economy can afford, but also how does that impact on the cost of living. So it's a tweaked rate this year at £12.21, but the real living wage, which is established by the Resolution Foundation every year, is a true measure of the cost of living and what people need to have a basic level of income. And that's at £12.60 an hour at the moment. So that's where we pin our flag. It's one of the Mayor's other campaigns about a real living wage city region. And we're seeking everybody pays at that level. Now, given the change of requirements of the low pay low pay commission, it's very likely that within the term of this government, the difference between the real living wage and the national living wage will be very slim. And so in terms of just thinking about resilience, Colin, um, part of resilience is certainty, knowing what's coming and you can prepare for it. And you can rest assured that pay levels will be increasing in line with the real living wage moving forward. Elements related to pay also include sick pay. We've required sick pay from day one of absence, particularly post-COVID. That became increasingly important for those who are working close to people and who need proximity. We're thinking about social care workers. We're thinking about people in the hospitality industry, in the transport industry. That's so important. It becomes a public health measure. We also look at pay gap reporting across not only gender, but also disability and ethnicity. We also look at secure work, flexible work, which has become something that was perhaps aspired to when we wrote the Charter back in 2018, 2019, but in fact has become something that is part and parcel of everybody's expectation in the workplace now. Obviously, you need to be well managed, and we look at management systems and making sure that managers have the skills and capacity to manage well. Employee voice and engagement is absolutely critical aspect of a good employment environment where employees feel that they are empowered and able to voice their ambitions and concerns about an organization. Recruitment and progression is so important in terms of an inclusive workplace, making sure that policies are in place. And all of this, Colin, leads to a healthier and a better well-being in your workforce, which inevitably leads to a happier, healthier workforce that is more productive and brings themselves to work, their full selves to work. In the process that we go through, we have two tiers. We have a supporter tier where we invite employers to come in and engage with us and commit to becoming a better employer. And there is no requirements to become a supporter of the Charter. But once you're with us and in our community, we will work with you, put you together with other employers who have gone through the process, who have similar problems, either in sector or scale, and we'll move you through to a membership level where you will be recognised as meeting good employment standards. Now, the benefits of that, Colin, are hopefully self-evident in terms of productivity, but also we're finding increasingly retention and recruitment gains. Recruitment fields have been, for some of our organizations, increased, and not just in volume, but in quality when people see the Good Employment Charter mark, and also retention levels are maintained. And so the costs involved in retention and recruitment can be directly affected by the quality of work that's offered. So that's a quick thumbnail. We'll come back, no doubt, to stuff relating to the Employment Rights Bill. But most of what I've just covered, you will find Terry talking about in terms of legislation that's coming.
That's great, Ian, and fascinating really to hear about the wide breadth of support that your team can offer businesses in GM, and almost that journey that you're taking them through. And great that they've got that ability to, I suppose, gain peer-to-peer learning from other businesses who have been there and done that.
Yeah,
And I'm definitely gonna come back and just touch on that sort of recruitment and retention piece because it's very important to the younger generation. But
just quickly to say, Colin, every month we have what we call share and learn sessions. And essentially these are sessions designed by the community who have got perhaps an issue in a particular area. They share a problem. We facilitate that with experts, perhaps ACAS, and the peer-to-peer support works through the problem and shares their experience and information and how they've perhaps dealt with similar issues. So it is a network that shares and supports one another.
It's really useful to know. Thank you, Ian. Thanks for that overview. I suppose, Claire, I'm going to come to you next because ultimately Ian has talked a little bit about how to become a good employer, but I do recognize that a lot of businesses on the ground are fighting the daily fight, if you know what I mean, trying to overcome, I suppose, those day-to-day challenges. Now, you're working on a daily basis across a wide range of businesses. You're providing support around leadership and workforce development. What are businesses that you're working with on the ground telling you about the types of challenges that they're facing, and what kind of solutions are you offering them, Claire?
Thanks, Colin. So yes, you're right. I very much on a day-to-day basis work with organisations of all shapes and sizes across Greater Manchester. And I would say for the past 12 months, this Make Will Work Pay bill has very much been on everybody's lips. It's been hugely talked about, and I think there's been a lot of scaremongering in the press, etc., around what it's going to look like when it comes in. So I would say, firstly, my first kind of piece of advice I'd give to any businesses on the call is just to attend webinars like this, really kind of try and educate yourself on what it actually looks like and how it's going to affect your business. Because I think that from looking at the news and reading the paper, it can create some very negative themes around the laws that are going to be coming in. And, from working with a lot of directors and business owners, a lot of them do want to do right for their employees. They want to be that good employer that Ian's just talked about. They truly do. And I think, sometimes the negativity can just really kind of just make the message kind of really diluted. And actually, if you do educate yourself on what's happening, it can be a really great opportunity to start professionalising your business and really setting the foundation so that when these laws do come in, and they're all going through consultation at the minute, so a lot of what we're talking about is maybe if it's probably going to happen, we don't actually know what it's going to look like yet. But I do think it's a good opportunity to start professionalising. So just to put that in a bit of context around the type of work I've been doing over the last 12 months with businesses, it's been around, well, for starters, I think this 2-year unqualified period for unfair dismissal has very much been the topic on a lot of businesses' lips. And I think when I've kind of dug under the surface of that, and I think if a lot of businesses are honest with themselves, some of them do use that 2-year qualifying period as a performance management tool. So actually, it's a good opportunity to put a magnifying glass over that and say, well, who are your managers? Are you giving your managers the tools to have those conversations with staff? Are we doing check-ins with staff? Are we doing monthly one-to-ones? Or are we doing appraisals? Have we got those lines of communication open so that we're addressing performance? Because if it is that, there's rumoured to be the 9-month probationary period that's going to be in place instead of this 2-year qualifying period, and it will be a light touch process. Allegedly, again, it's all going through consultation. There is going to be an expectation that the managers and the people managers in the business are going to have to be equipped to have those conversations. So now is very much the time to start doing that workforce development. So anybody in Greater Manchester, any business in Greater Manchester can access workforce development support, whether it's through the growth company in the role that I was prior, or the manufacturing role that I'm in now. It's fully funded and you can access that support. And what that support looks like is literally, who are your people? Who are your people managers? Who are your future leaders? Who are we putting on succession? And let's get upskilling and training. There's absolutely loads of really great fully funded courses out there. whether it be a 1 hour webinar like this one, all the way to a degree level apprenticeship that you can put people on. So, you know, there's absolutely loads of support. But the type of work I've been doing is that real big work around the upskilling piece, the communication piece with your managers. Give your managers the tools to be able to have these conversations, because the expectation is the conversations are going to happen. So prepare them for that, support them around that. And then it's also around the appraisal system. That I've done lots of work with companies around professionalising the business and putting some form of appraisal system in. And I've used ACAS a lot. So anything that I do tends to be either ACAS or CIPD, signposting and templates. ACAS have got some fantastic templates on the website. So rightly or wrongly, I don't think an appraisal needs to be a 5-page document. That's turns into like an absolute pain. I mean, I had 17 staff across 2 businesses in one role I was at. Having to do 17 appraisals is a big job. You need it to be quick and easy, and it needs to take, it's not a tick-box exercise. It needs to be, well, you know, it's a communication tool. So what I would say is explore the fantastic resources that ACAS have got, but if you need some help around implementing this stuff, there is fully funded support available. So absolutely reach out and you know, let us take you through that.
That's really helpful, Claire. And that is the most important message across all of our webinar series, is that whatever the challenge is, there is help out there available. And as you say, Claire, and I know Ian referenced that sense of uncertainty and the need for clarity, but when it comes to your workforce development, that's a constant, and there's lots of help out there. Johnny, Ian touched a little in his opening address around retention of employees. And I suppose with a lot of the economic uncertainty at this point in time, we are seeing maybe some employers who are holding off on recruitment. We are maybe seeing employees who are looking at other opportunities based upon their employer's credentials. There's a lot to absorb around the world of recruitment and retention. And you obviously represent the recruitment industry, and I suppose your role specifically gives you that bird's eye view of the employment landscape. So what are you seeing at the moment, Johnny, in terms of recruitment, and what is causing you concern? And similarly, what do you think we should be positive about?
Thanks, Colin. Yes, so I will start with the positives. So hiring levels are above the 10-year rolling average in the UK. It just doesn't really feel that way since the peak that we had in 2022. So there has been a consecutive decline in volumes since that peak. A great success story is unemployment. So in the past decade, we've been through COVID, inflation, economic uncertainties, war in Europe, and our unemployment rate has remained below 5.3%. So it currently stands at just 4.4%. So that's great news for employment. But what we have seen at Robert Walters is more of an appetite for junior and entry-level talent. So a lot of businesses are seeing firsthand the consequences of experienced talent leaving the labour market early. So shrinking workforce does present long-term demographic challenges. So a lot of employers are looking for that junior entry-level talent, and upskilling and retention is key to keeping those people that you do train up within your business and not going and flourishing elsewhere, perhaps at a competitor. There is also an appetite from candidates to develop skills, so not just to remain employable, but earn greater compensation, lead to new pathways, maybe a pivot in their career, and that's led to greater levels of investment from employers in not just skills, but also well-being at work. I will go through some concerns. I will keep this brief. So currently there are just under 37 million people within the UK workforce. So that's the largest that we've ever seen. So the current labour market is the biggest it's ever been. But this doesn't seem to be transpiring into reducing skill shortages or leading to greater economic growth. So there is something wrong in the system at the moment. Low productivity is also a problem that has been plaguing us for quite some time now. So our output per hour worked is in the bottom half of OECD rankings, and we fall well below France, Germany, and the US on productivity. As I mentioned, as the market becomes more challenging to find candidates, a decision to hire, which would have been a no-brainer 3 years ago, even 2 years ago, is now much more concerted. And a lot of employers are looking inwards. So they're looking at internal mobility, upskilling, reskilling, and even contingent hiring before dipping into the market as well.
And I suppose you referenced the T levels element, and as you mentioned, that sort of entry level talent. Do you see initiatives that bring employers and young people together as essential for that sort of pipeline of talent that employers need to address those skills gaps?
Yes, absolutely. So often employers will look to sponsor current students or current graduates, particularly in some sectors such as insurance. So the median age within insurance is now over 50 years old. So that's going to present a big challenge for when these experienced people do retire in the next decade. Who is going to fill that gap? So they will look to keep those people within their business, have them learn from the existing workforce and existing talent, but also to allow them to flourish within that environment as well. Of course, that costs businesses a lot of money to invest in the skills, the learning that they need to do. There is that risk that they may leave as well. But on the flip side, if you do invest in those skills and give employers what they strive for and what they want to achieve, they will stay with the business, and ultimately your retention rate will be how you can gauge success.
Thanks, Johnny. And I suppose, Ian, coming back to you.
I've lost Colin. Has everyone else lost Colin?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to anticipate what he was about to ask me. I get we've done some work around with partners around the generational profiles of our employers and how you work with them, particularly around Gen Z. I guess you, Johnny, know a little bit about the different. I think there's 5 potential generations in our workforces now. And looking at Gen Z particularly, very tech savvy, social media brought up with it, and so kind of competitive at one level, but also susceptible to lows as well because of the impact of social media. Definitely looking for psychological safety and an organization that has good values. Increasingly, I think we're seeing young candidates coming to employers going, yeah, I know I'm going to get the real living wage, but what about the cleaner? And what about our supply chains? It's those sorts of questions that will, the shoe's almost shifted to the other foot in a sense. And the employee or potential employee's got a lot of power or agency in that decision now. Colin, we lost you, but I anticipated your question, I think, around generational stuff.
That was it exactly. Yeah,
All
and
right, good.
thanks for that anticipation, Ian. I think that's the first technical hitch we've had in a few weeks, so
No worries.
apologies for that. But I can see we've been joined by Terry. Hiya, Terry. How are you?
I'm good, Colin. Hope you can hear me okay. I'm in an atrium in Leeds at the moment, so
Yeah, it
hopefully
looks
my connection will stay up.
fingers crossed. Well, look, Terry, would you mind taking just a moment to introduce yourself for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Terry Duffy, and I'm here on behalf of ACAS. So hopefully people on the call will be familiar for ACAS, hopefully for positive reasons, as well as, can I say, sometimes some of the negative things where disputes have occurred and we have to come in and support them. But I work within ACAS on the training and advisory side of things. So obviously when Colin approached us to be part of this, can I say, panel, it's exactly the kind of thing that we like to do, is to connect with businesses, understand what the challenges, the fears, the worries are, and then also talk about what those solutions can be. And I joined the call when Claire was kindly saying about some of the resources that she uses and advocates use of, and that's the kind of thing that we want to do. We want to be there to help, not just when things have gone wrong, but in anticipation of things or big changes coming up like the Employment Rights Bill, and be able to help and support businesses to be able to respond positively to those legislative changes.
Yeah, absolutely, Terry. And that, the work that ACAS does, not just for employees, but for employers, it really is tireless. And you mentioned the Employment Right Bill. And I suppose over recent months, we've heard a lot about it. But maybe you can allude, Terry, to what those key changes are within the bill and why, in your mind, employers shouldn't be fearful of what's coming.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing to say, it is a large piece of legislation covering a whole host of employment rights. And I think that's the first thing. Sometimes things can just feel overwhelming because of the size. So sometimes it's about breaking those things down, understanding what the direction of travel is, and then what you might need to do to respond to those things. I think, I mean, one of the big things that's taken a lot of people's attention, Colin, is the issues around day one rights. So at the moment, we have employment rights that people have, but they earn them through qualification of service with an employer. And so one of the things that people have been talking about is the introduction of the day one right not to be unfairly dismissed. And that's, I have to say that can I say there have perhaps been some commentators who've been trying to spook businesses around what this might mean. But from our point of view in ACAS, and we write the code of practice on how you should handle discipline and grievance fairly and reasonably in workplaces, we've never had a time limit within that code of practice, Colin. We've always advocated for doing the right things. And we would advocate that good businesses should want to do that too. So essentially what we're saying is we're going to see something which might be, an enhanced right. And then the government are talking about some probationary period, which would still allow the license for employers to make a decision about confirmed appointment or not. And one of the things that we do see, Colin, is businesses don't operate that probationary period as well as they perhaps should. So you've spent all your time in recruitment, and Johnny can talk about, can I say, how much it costs, to do recruitment. But then you might be facing a situation where you're having to say yes or no to somebody. So we would always say, make sure you manage that probationary period properly. And if at the end of it, the decision is that the appointment can't be confirmed, then at least you will know the basis on which you've done that. So even if a day one right comes in where somebody might want to challenge you on that, you will have your evidence base to defend yourself at the very least. So I suppose that's the way we're approaching it. We're trying to look at these things in a positive way and say, what can businesses get out of it? Well, it might demand that businesses do some of the things that they should be doing already and do them better, because there is a potential risk if they don't, and it's an enhanced risk if they don't.
Yeah, and ultimately that very much aligns with the overall approach that this campaign that we're running focuses on is trying to extract the positives. I think we can get caught up in media negatives, if you like. So it's a really useful point, Terry, that businesses should reach out and inform themselves and seek support from the likes of ACAS. And I know a lot of businesses do knock on your door, Terry. And I suppose what are the kind of trends that ACAS are seeing by way of employers reaching out for training or advice?
Following on, I think, from what Claire was saying about some of the things, that businesses are in control of, we're seeing an enormous amount of interest from businesses in how can we equip our managers to do things better? So we're seeing investment in managers, and we think that's a real positive thing because lots of organizations have fantastic policies and procedures, but then they still find themselves with problems in their workplaces. And when you look and diagnose that issue, it tends to be about how the policy and procedure is being interpreted or indeed transacted with, kind of say, between managers and the workforce. So joining that up and making that sequence properly so that managers are consistent, they're clear, they're kind of say on top of things if it's a performance issue, and doing things in the right way, um, is something that we're seeing a lot of. And what do we think that will do? Well, I think it makes workplaces better, because I think I've certainly worked in workplaces where if a manager wasn't managing perhaps people within my team, that can breed sometimes disengagement. It can lead to lack of morale. It can lead to lack of faith in the manager. And it can lead to, kind of say, copycat behaviors. And that doesn't lead to, kind of say, productive, healthy workplaces. So sometimes correction needs to be done, but done properly. And we're seeing a lot of businesses who are interested in investing in their managers to be able to do those things better because it's better for the individual, it's better for the business, and it's better for the manager overall.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's great to hear that you are seeing more businesses knocking on the door and looking to, I suppose, upskill their management. But and without Johnny, I'm going to come back to you without focusing too much on negatives, more around, I suppose, what you as representing the recruitment industry maybe have slight concerns around in respect of the plans changes to employment law and specifically how that might impact business recruitment?
Yes, I suppose that further regulation comes with a stigma that it will stifle growth, hiring, and investment overall. But in the long run, stronger employment and higher growth levels kind of go hand in hand. So this will increase workers' rights, but it will also increase the dynamism of the UK labour market as well. Short term, yes, it will have a slight impact. Employers are already hesitant on new hires following the autumn budget's increased cost of employment. The government's own estimates for the Employment Rights Bill is 5 billion a year to implement this across the UK. So of course that will keep legal teams busier than the talent acquisition function. But what we're looking at is a longer term growth plan here. So like I mentioned, increased dynamism of the UK labour market, not necessarily the size. We've got a good, strong employment market at the moment, but looking at job mobility, skills, how transient it may be between people moving between jobs, how flexible we can make the labour market and fair, crucially, as well. So all of those things can drive up further participation, getting people back into work, one of the main motives of this, improve the health of the workforce, raise productivity, and ultimately boost demand and make it a healthier environment for employers.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And I can see actually just in the chat, Ian has posted the link to a fact sheet around the Employment Rights Bill. And obviously, Ian, this is a theme that is clearly coming across the door of the Good Employment Charter on a regular basis. And you collaborate with ACAS quite regularly, don't you, to ensure that businesses have full sight of what's coming?
Well, core partners, Terry, and the whole organisation of ACAS have been key and founder partners of the Charter from day one, along with the TUC and CIPD and the business sectors as well. There's no doubt that we whilst we sit in the center of this debate at the moment, or this agenda at the moment, we curate a hell of a lot of support around it with ACAS and CIPD and others who are supporting the good work agenda. Just a reflection though, Colin, that there is an awful lot of negative talk around the Employment Rights Bill. And as Johnny rightly points out, legals are very busy at the moment, and are very happy to show the scariness as it's being portrayed and how they can help. In truth, what we're doing here is bringing our employment law up to date. We're bringing it up to date with modern European standards that you would expect to see right across the continent. We didn't have an employment bill despite the promises for more than 14 years. So we're only bringing the UK law up to date now. In a sense, the Good Employment Charter was ahead of the game. And when we wrote the membership criteria for the charter back in 2019, we were reflecting much of what's in the Employment Rights Bill now. So our message is very much, and we've seen this through, I would say, the last 9 months, number of employers coming to us to get on board, to learn, to understand what the standards that will be required by legislation, which have been part and parcel of the Charter for the last 6 years. So there's a mechanism by which people can get ahead of the curve on this and be ready for when the legislation comes into force, which we understand will not be until 26 and may even be in some aspects 2027.
Well, I was actually gonna come back to Terry, and apologies if I'm putting you on the spot at all, Terry, but I suppose a key question for businesses is what is the timeline we're working to at the moment on all of this?
Yeah, as Ian said, the bill came in relatively quickly after the government, because that was a promise, to introduce a bill within 100 days. And as Ian said, we'd waited some while for an employment rights bill. So yeah, the first that we're hearing, there's lots of consultation, there's lots of activity going on around the bill, because there's a lot to make its way through the kind of say the legislative journey. But the first that we probably expecting to see the significant aspects would be in 2026, and certainly for the day one right around unfair dismissal. The indications were that would be the autumn of 2026. But obviously, lots of things come along, that divert the government's time and energies. So that's just the indicative timetable. What I would say is that, as Ian has kindly said, that yes, we are there to try and help and support and guide. We did have an employment rights bill webinar that we put on that was incredibly kind of say popular for people to come along and hearing about, and that was just around the announcements. We will be doing more things like that. So what I would say to people on here is look out for those opportunities to come along and hear about it as it goes through those different stages. And probably what we will do is we'll look to focus on particular aspects of the bill as well, because it's likely that that's what will happen. Some parts of it may be enacted before others. So look out for kind of say, or maybe sign up to kind of say our newsletter so that you're seeing what opportunities there are to kind of say dip in. And of course, we'll be working with Ian and his team about putting on events via the Good Employment Charter as well. So there's lots of opportunities for the people to understand what's happening, when it's happening, ahead of it actually coming into law.
That's great, Terry. Thank you for that. And do keep us abreast of those opportunities to engage. I suppose, Claire, we've talked a little bit about I suppose as a panel, you've got insights that maybe some employers don't have. And again, we sometimes are fed our news through the negatives, if you like. But in terms of your ability, Claire, to work with those businesses who are trying to understand what's required, what approach are you taking in terms of those elements of lack of clarity or uncertainty?
I think the signposting, like Terry and Ian have just been talking about, there is lots of webinars from reputable sources like CIPD, like ACAS, like Good Employment Charter, like this one today, that you can really get some clear direction on what that looks like and what you need to put into place. So I think it can be hard, and just to play kind of devil's advocate for businesses, it's been hard the last couple of years. They're just recovering from COVID, and then the economy. It's been really, really tough. So it's almost as like it's another layer of sort of complexity to add to the businesses that are already feeling like they're fighting fire. I completely understand that. And I think sometimes it is just about taking a step back away from, right, well, what does this actually look like for my business? And just preparing for it appropriately. I mean, I had people over 12 months ago, when the Labour government got in, businesses from huge manufacturers saying, I'm putting a complete recruitment hold on, I'm no longer recruiting because I've not got a HR manager and I'm going to need one. And this isn't happening overnight. There's going to be support. Business support is available, and it does tend to be, like, I know for the growth company, it's topical support around what's happening in that business economy. There will be lots of support available around this. So, I know we keep saying it, but it's about reaching out to that support and using it as an opportunity. I've had a lot of businesses who I'm working with who are going, right, this is my sort of red flag now to professionalise the business and start putting policies in and putting procedures in and start that upskill so that we're prepared. And actually, are we hiring good quality people if we utilising this 2-year qualifying period to performance management and basically fire them? Like, what a waste of time for everybody involved in that, because some people don't like having difficult conversations and actually addressing it. It is a skill that you can, practice and get better at. And I think too many people just walk past having these conversations and not addressing performance management, up to the point where I've had organisations ask me around doing a restructure just because they physically don't want to go through the performance management route with a client, with an employee. So I think sometimes it's about that, taking that step back and going, okay, am I doing the right thing here? And actually, let's prepare for what's coming, because we can use it as an opportunity to put some really great processes in place and make our employment better.
Yeah, and again, that we constantly referencing the reach out for support, and businesses have had a lot to navigate over recent months and years, whether it's the EU exit and the changes to how we operate in the UK, whether it was the pandemic, natural disasters and challenges. And I think at times it can all be all encompassing to a business just to sort of see the difficult sides of things, but actually by instigating support from a wide range of organizations, and there really is opportunity there to navigate these challenges. And obviously, I represent the Business Growth Hub. We are not the only support provider available. However, through our partnerships, collaborations, we have the ability to signpost businesses to the relevant support for their specific need. That may not be delivered through ourselves. It might be through ACAS. It might be the Good Employment Charter, or it might be the private sector and organizations like Johnny's. And that ability to demonstrate to the business community that the support is actually joined up as well. And on a theme such as this, I think a real positive to hear about the work that Terry and Ian do together, that core partnership that recognizes the need for fluidity in terms of support to businesses. We have about 7 minutes left. I'd really encourage the audience to post any questions in the chat, any specific questions that you think Ian, Terry, Johnny, or Claire might be able to answer for you. But whilst we're waiting for that, I suppose one slightly left field theme that we hear a lot around is technology and technology adoption and within businesses. And I suppose I'd put it to all of the panel. Is there mechanisms and technologies that you're aware of that can help businesses become better employers and maybe prepare themselves better for the changes that are coming? And that's put to all of our panels, so not expecting all of you to answer it, but if anyone has any insights, it'd be great to hear.
It's a good question. I'll give others some time to think about it while I have a pop. I think certainly through COVID, that was fascinating because I said before about flexible work, and it was an aspiration in a sense when we set it out, and then almost within 6 months of lockdown, everybody said, "Oh yeah, we've done flexible work. We'll give everyone a laptop," and they've gone home. And it was like, well, okay, but actually people are working longer, work intensification happened. The commute was substituted by an extra hour each day. People weren't taking the breaks, they weren't having the interaction. So we recognized that during COVID. We worked with one of our partners on an app, basically an employee engagement app, which allowed people to, in real time, check in whether they were good, bad, indifferent, how they were feeling, gave managers a dashboard that would allow them to see how their staff were working. Now that was useful during remote working, during when everybody was in it, but it's built that sort of engagement platform, particularly as I was saying before, the younger generation, tech savvy, everything's done through their mobile phone. That can also provide psychological safe spaces for people as well. So tech in terms of employee engagement is quite interesting, Colin. I think one of the things the Charter has to do over the next year, and we are going through a review process, is looking at the impacts of AI and how AI will impact the quality of work particularly. And I'm sure Terry will have some thoughts about how AI should be introduced into a workplace as well, and the processes of and how you engage people. I just comment though that a good workplace relies on people dealing with people, and we can't get away from that personal interaction in terms of management.
Harry, did you
Yeah.
want to come in? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that I would always, you probably wouldn't be surprised that ACAS would come in and enhance that talking to people about, because technology, AI, it's coming at a pace. It's affecting us in lots and lots of different ways, but whatever impact it's going to have on your workplace and your workforce, we would always encourage that open and honest discussion with them, because whatever it does, even if it does, can I say, lead to, can I say, some efficiencies where you can run your businesses with less paid for staff because of technology, and we've seen that over many, many years. There are those who remain in the workplace, and it's important for them to feel that any process of change has been handled fairly. So I think there is a job of work to be done, but a lot of what we're coming back to is things that we've always had to do anyway. It just seems to happen at, can I say, a much faster pace at the moment.
Yeah, and I think you're right, Terry. There's no substitute for people-to-people interaction. And as Ian well knows, when Ian started at the Charter, I stepped into his old job, and that was actually in March 2020. So I spent 18 months in a new job, locked up in my bedroom. So the ability to get it back out and interact and actually get to know colleagues, there really is no substitute for it. I am just conscious that we're actually coming to the end of our discussion. I know that our panel have other commitments today. To our audience, if you do have any questions that you maybe didn't want to pop in the chat, please do reach out to us after the call. This concludes today's webinar, but also our series of webinars. So I just want to say a huge thank you to you, our audience, for joining us over recent weeks, to our partner organizations, all of those who have supported the Here for Business initiative, obviously to Ian, Terry, Claire, and Johnny for their contribution today. The Business Growth Hub is available for any of your business support needs. As I mentioned before, if we're not able to help you, then we will know somebody who can. So, I really would encourage you to reach out to us with any questions, any concerns you have. I think my colleague Haley has posted the QR code for the GMT levels information. And I will conclude there and wish you all a super day ahead. And thanks again for being with us. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Colin. Thank you.